welcome to Dead Letter Movie Chat, Episode 2, April 20th, 2014. I'm Tim.
I'm Andrew.
And tonight we're going to be talking about the Grand Budapest Hotel, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and Oculus. So let's start with Wes Anderson's new movie, Grand Budapest Hotel. Quick summary.
Are you doing that or am I?
Go ahead. You do this one.
Okay, quick summary of the film is it is a film with multiple layers, but the bulk of the film is the story that F. Murray Abraham, as a character named Zero, is telling Jude Law about his life at this hotel, the Grand Budapest Hotel in the early 30s. The main character of it is in a sense Zero, but it is really Ralph Fiennes' character, who is the concierge of the hotel. And it is all about his various misadventures as such, and he inherits something from a wealthy woman played by Tilda Swinton in probably the best old age makeup I've seen in a long time, and the various goings-on having to deal with that plot, without having to give away too much. Yes, the film is directed by Wes Anderson. I have seen all of Anderson's films. Tim, on the other hand, this was his first one. So I think Tim's fresh look at the whole concept and quirkiness of Anderson's style is probably going to be very different than my...
That's probably true. Yeah. I've been meaning to get into Wes Anderson for a while and just hadn't happened. Hey, that movie looks interesting. Hey, this other movie looks interesting. Hey, that's Wes Anderson again. A couple years down. Okay, well, finally got to one. And it was this one. I had a lot of fun. This was really, like you said, very, very quirky, which I'm coming to understand is a big part of Mr. Anderson's style. It's but it was quirky in a way that was not expected. It was surprising. It wasn't here's a cheap quirk that some other character in a sitcom had, and we'll just do that and expect everyone to laugh. This is unique and creative and bizarre in ways that I didn't ever really see coming. Mm-hmm. And it's everything from the characters and who they are to the dialogue, the way it's written, to the way it's shot, the camera angles and everything. This was really, really unique. I can honestly say this was not really like anything else I've seen. So I had a great time watching this. Freaking everybody was in this movie. Who was not in this movie? Jeez. You let's see. You said Jude Law. You said F. Murray Abraham. Ralph Fiennes.
Tom Wilkinson.
Tilda Swinton. The list
Norton,
goes on and
it just keeps
on
going.
and on.
And of course Bill Murray, because he's in everything Wes Anderson does.
Yeah. Which surprised me. I didn't know Bill Murray was in this.
Oh yeah.
So that was great. Was wonderful to see him doing something in a movie. Let's see here. We talked a little about this earlier. The way it has the nested framing device. Mm-hmm. An author writing a book about something that he was told by someone who was there that was actually somebody else's story, and it's Wes Anderson all the way down, and it's
very convoluted, and it almost feels like a satire of frame narrative in that way.
I'd be interested to hear what Anderson himself would say about that if somebody posed that question to him. But yeah, it did seem really another one. Two or three of those. And okay, are we going to settle into this? Nope, one more.
Yep.
So.
I don't know. I enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I did too. It was like I said, unexpected. So it was fresh, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was really intended to be satire as such.
I know. I could since it's so that convoluted, you'd think it has to be a joke, you know.
Yeah.
But like I was going along with those frames there. Not only are they frame narratives, they also have different framing. It's a way to keep you involved in where you are in the story and everything. But like when the film begins, it's in like a normal aspect ratio that we're used to, some kind of 16:9 thing, and then it goes to a moment in 1985, which is just a little narrower, just a touch, and then we go to 1967 with another part of the frame, which is about at a CinemaScope ratio, which was more popular in that time of the era. And well, not quite CinemaScope, but you know what I mean, something a little more narrow.
Yeah, somewhere around a 2.3 to 1, I think.
Somewhere around there. And then when we get to the bulk of the film is actually in what people would call like full screen or 4:3 ratio or Academy ratio, for considering that is how things were in the 1930s at that point where the movie is taking place. It totally makes sense for it to be like this. But framing seems to be its own bizarre thing in this movie. It's its own little device and trope that they use.
And regardless of the aspect ratio, it seemed I can't recall at any point seeing where the camera was not at a right angle to the action.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you were either looking directly at the character's front or directly at their side. There was never an angle on. It was always just straight lines. So that was a little unusual in this day and age. You don't see anything like that in movies much anymore.
It's a very old cinema thing to do.
It is. And this, you can tell, you know, Wes Anderson is a guy who loves movies. Just some of the way he put this together, it was very reminiscent in a lot of ways of, you know, old classic movies dating from even the earlier talkies in the 20s, you know, through the 30s and the 50s and all these different ages, the ones that have really stuck around, and you can see the lineage going back. So yeah, that was really great. A chase scene that was also not like anything else I had ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was really something. That was a treat. I don't want to spoil that. Folks, go see the movie.
It's a good time.
That'll make you sit up and take notice more than anything else we've just mentioned. You know, the aspect ratios or the camera angles or the color palettes.
Right.
This was a whole new level of quirk.
Yeah. And if you're like me and have seen his other movies and would be worried about his style getting old, because I kind of felt that way when Moonrise Kingdom came out. Although I liked that movie, I felt like I was getting kind of tired of his style, and I felt that he needed to do something else with his time. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was just, I don't know, it was just great in the way that he did things. Ultimately, none of these movies take place in reality, so, I mean, like...
Yeah, and he kind of poked at that a little bit at the end of this one, too. You know, the nature of reality and perspective. And
yeah, so, and that kind of goes with that framing thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, what is truth in regard to this story? But these are all things we can talk about and be at length about, the technical things, the way the film is made. But ultimately, this film has really great performances. Ralph Fiennes and Tony Revolori do have this great connection, and I would totally I want them to make other movies together. So luckily Wes Anderson usually reuses people, so hopefully we'll see them together again. But I would totally watch them in like a buddy cop movie. I mean, like, they are two people that wouldn't ever make a buddy cop movie, but yeah, I would totally go. So ultimately, I would say that this film is really worth anybody's time. As for a grade, I was giving it an A-, pretty much because it's still kind of it's very whimsical, it's very silly, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in any way. but it could be a thing that is a detractor for some people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also really hard for me to give something an A or an A plus without feeling guilty. So I mean, like A minus seems like a more comfortable grade for me. What about you, Tim?
A minus from me as well. Few points off for part of Wes Anderson's quirk in this movie, at least, and I can't speak to his others, involved in a couple of places what seemed to me obscenity for obscenity's sake, where the same effect might have been accomplished with something slightly less family unfriendly. This isn't really a family movie. It's not pretending to be.
Yeah.
But I felt like I see what you were going for there, but that it had that effect, but it kind of took me out of it a little bit too, because it is, you deliberately went there instead of somewhere else that would have done the same thing to the audience. Mm-hmm. So, but really, that's kind of a minor complaint. I really enjoyed the movie, had a great time. I thought the pacing was really great. It didn't feel to me like it dragged anywhere. I was engaged, visually and in the story at pretty much every point. So,
yeah. So our second film tonight is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and this is where we have kind of a switch. Whereas Tim had never seen a Wes Anderson movie, I had not seen Captain America: The First Avenger. So now I had seen other films in the Marvel cinema universe. I had seen the 3 Iron Man movies and the Avengers. No offense to Thor, and I just don't care. I just don't care. So, but when Tim and I agreed to see this movie, I thought, well, it might be fun for me to see this without having seen the other ones. And I remember in the Avengers actually really enjoying Chris Evans as Captain America. So I thought, well, it'll probably still be a good time. The summary of the film is in modern day time, the captain is still dealing with his whole "I have awoken in this new present, what is going on in the world" thing. He still works for S.H.I.E.L.D., and there is this assassin called the Winter Soldier that is causing all these troubles. There's also a lot of internal issues with S.H.I.E.L.D. that are going on that are much to the chagrin of Sam Jackson as Nick Fury. And Robert Redford stars in the film as a I don't want to get into it too much, but as an antagonist of sorts towards both Fury and Captain America. The film itself is actually quite enjoyable. It was very entertaining. It's a total popcorn movie. You're not going to, your life is not going to be changed by this film. But I had a good time. I think that's very important sometimes. My only big, major complaint about the film is that I get really bored in fight scenes. This is totally Quentin Tarantino and the Matrix films' fault. They stylized and made fighting so well that everything else just seems long and boring now.
There's some truth to that. The Matrix was definitely a watershed moment for action in movies. And Tarantino to a somewhat lesser extent.
But this is all entirely Kill Bill.
It kind of is.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's any of his other movies, but it's like Kill Bill and the Matrix movies basically have ruined fight scenes for me because they're never going to be quite that good in my mind. Or I get to the saturation point where I'm just like, okay, I'm done. Just go on to the next plot point, please. And there were a few instances of that in this film for me. But anyway, Tim, I'm sure you have things to enlighten us with about this film.
Well, let's like we just mentioned, this is kind of a flip. I'm a big fan of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, everything they're doing with it, how it's all interconnected. They've got it roadmapped out for another 10,
forever.
15 years at this point, for a couple of movies every year. I don't know what they're planning to do with the TV show, if it gets renewed for a second season or what, but it's all closely tied together. You see the aftermath, the fallout from one movie to the next. at least post Avengers. Everything before the first Avengers movie was kind of set up. So everything since then is okay. We've got this big established universe where all kinds of complicated things are happening. No, I thought there were some really like you said, for a popcorn action superhero movie, some good performances. Robert Redford, almost always enjoy watching him in a movie. Couple of rare exceptions, but we won't get into that. No, it's great to see him still working. I mean, he's clearly not as young as he used to be. No old age makeup here like we have Tilda Swinton in Grand Budapest.
But he doesn't look quite as bad either.
No, that's true.
Definitely doesn't look like Sundance anymore. That's for sure.
No, almost not at all. But he was a lot of fun to watch in this movie. Really worked the characters, where some other actors would be chewing on the scenery. Redford's just going for the jugular in every single scene he's in. He's got that steely gaze, and he's like trying to bore a hole in Captain Rogers' skull. So I had a lot of fun with this. I thought it was a better movie than the previous Marvel entry, Thor: The Dark World, although that one was more fun. This felt more serious, but I thought was a better put together movie overall. I really got a sense of the stakes and the tension, and that kind of grabbed me. Not like a serious drama would, but there were shades of that in there. Some notes. There's
definitely some serious security questions that are being asked in this film. And thankfully not in a very heavy-handed manner.
There's definitely some undertone of social commentary here, and I don't think it runs too deep. I don't think it needs to. We see it in the news every day.
Yeah.
But yeah. So for the most part, I really thought this was a good movie. I had a great time. For being subtitled The Winter Soldier, I thought it was a little odd how little we saw of that character specifically. He wasn't in the movie very much. There are a lot of things going on, and that was the Winter Soldier and who he is and what he represents. That's big for the character of Captain America. But there's a lot more going on too, and he's really only kind of tangentially related to that. So I don't know what else I would have called it. It's a good title. It looks good on a poster. It sounds good in a trailer when you got someone saying "in a world."
Well, any other title you come up with would just give away too much, I think, is the other problem.
Yeah, it kind of would. There was a lot of cloak and dagger kind of stuff going on. So grade for me, I'll give this one a flat A. Really, it was pretty much anything you could hope for out of a movie like this. Not gonna change anybody's life seeing or not seeing this movie, but no, this is a fine example of the genre in the medium, and
I think for me, this film is very predictable. I mean, but the thing is, I don't care. It was like I knew everything that was going to happen, but I was still enjoying everything about it. So that I feel like
I had that moment when I saw Avatar.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like 40 minutes in. It was like, okay,
and this is gonna happen.
This and this and this and this and this. 2 hours before it happens, but that was immediately followed by the realization that I didn't care. I was having fun.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I had fun. So it didn't bother me. So ultimately, I'm giving the film B not because it is predictable, because that isn't necessarily a problem, but because I felt like you could have shaved off 20 minutes somewhere, and the film probably would have been better. Probably you could delete 5 minutes from just about any fight scene, and all would be okay. But that's me. there's your grain of salt, people. So take that as you will. Our third film tonight is a horror film, which is, now I am a horror film guy. I go onto the websites, I read all the stuff, and this particular film was actually getting a fair amount of praise amongst the various forums and whatnot that I look at. And the film's called Oculus. It's a rare thing in the horror film world in which we have something that isn't a remake, although this is based off of a short film, but that I'm not being too bothered about this, and is also R-rated and is not a sequel. This doesn't really happen anymore. And so a part of me felt like, well, I kind of should go see this because I need to support this because I don't get any of this ever. And ultimately it's just a horror film is really what it comes down to. This brother and sister, the sister played by Karen Gillan, the brother played by Brenton Thwaites, are haunted by an evil mirror of sorts that has been plaguing their lives for something like, well, over
10
a decade.
or 11 years.
10 or 11 years.
Yeah.
Over a decade. And it destroyed their family and everything. And they are going to, the bulk of the film is all about them attempting to destroy a mirror. Yes, somehow they take over 100 minutes to find out how to deal with the mirror. That sounds ridiculous. I realize. Or do they? And the thing is that the film is... Okay, now, because I'm such a horror film guy, I'm probably a harsher critic for these things. So there's that for you. The big problem for me in this movie was that it showed too much of its monster, which was kind of weak to begin with. It wasn't a particularly scary monster, and they still kind of showed too much of it, so when they finally got to the climax of the film, I felt like, whatever. Yeah. The performances of the film are well, okay, really, Karen Gillan is the only one that's really good in it. Brenton Thwaites is, I don't know, people kept talking about how he apparently did a good job in the performance, but mostly I just felt like all he had was wide-eyed and wooden for the whole film. Now, the film cuts back between, like, the present day and 11 years ago, so we have Karen and Brenton, and then we have younger versions of them in the early 2000s, and the kids in the film aren't terrible. I will say that is a rare thing in horror films, but like every horror film that features children, they do eventually get annoying. So, be that as it may, I felt like the editing back between the present day and the past was actually really effective and gave the film a very interesting feel. It could have been more fluid at times, but I felt like that was a very good juxtaposition of things. So that's what I liked about the movie. I wish the male lead was better, but I have other grievances, but we'll let Tim weigh in first.
So my grain of salt for this one is that I'm going to show a little bit of my bias here that may be unprofessional, but hey, guess what? We're amateurs.
Yeah.
Horror is not really in my wheelhouse. It's never really done a whole lot for me, so I don't watch a whole lot of horror movies. I just don't. But yeah, I went and saw this one. I recognized a number of the actors. Karen Gillan, of course. Katie Sackhoff. Rory Cochrane, who played the dad, used to be on CSI Miami, I think, and then he left and hadn't been on it for, I don't know.
There's a name I recognize, but I didn't know what from.
Let's see, he was also in A Scanner Darkly.
Ah, that might be why. Yeah.
If you can recognize anybody in that movie. But so all that being said, I felt like this was a competent horror movie. Yeah, it kind of it checked the boxes. This is not a bad example, but it didn't really stand out to me either. I mean, credit for avoiding the cheap startles or just loads and loads of gore. Gore is cheap, and we've all seen it. And startle is that's a quick scare, but that's not real, fear per se. It's not disturbing or unsettling. It's just that moment, and it's gone. So they avoided that. A lot of credit for that. But I thought it felt kind of disjointed, which I suppose was part of how they were aiming to achieve the horror effect.
That's how they were trying to get in our heads.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And but it didn't really work, and instead it made me kind of sit up and think, wait, what's going on here? As far as the monsters, I agree. They showed a little too much of them. I mean, old axiom for monster movies: less is more.
Less is more.
Your imagination is way scarier than anything they're ever gonna put on the screen. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. I mean, you look at something in a monster movie now versus something, I don't know, 60, 70 years ago. It looks better, but if you show too much of it, it's still just a model or a guy in a rubber suit or something. Yeah. So
or a zombie with mirror eyes in this case. But,
so I agreed. Some decent performances. I mean, I wasn't rooting for the monster at any point, really.
That is true. I didn't want anyone necessarily to lose. I mean, I didn't want the bad guy or the good guy. I didn't want the bad guy to win, and I didn't really want the good guys to lose. I mean, so I know that sounds like I just said the same thing twice, but those are very different things. So yeah, I mean, like, that was a good thing. I ended up caring about the characters, even though I thought the performances were lacking. So I guess that's a sign of good script writing.
Yeah. So
you go on.
Well, like I said, all in all, very, very competent. But again, not great. Nothing that really made me sit up and think, wow, this was great. I mean, I spent more time wondering about the nature of the monster and what's it really after. What does it want? Does it want? Is it just sort of an animalistic instinctive thing, or does it have some sort of real intelligence, malevolence behind it? Or and trying to keep straight. Wait, are we in the past, or are we in the present looking at the past, or vice versa? And thing about horror movies, you never are really completely sure until the end just exactly how it's going to end. Sometimes the good guys win, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's an unhappy ending. I mean, sometimes even when the good guys win, it's an unhappy ending. It's a horror movie. But I spent more time in my own head wondering and musing about things than I did really involved in the movie. So maybe that was just me, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So C+ from me for this.
Yeah, like, as you were just hitting upon, the monster. Notice that we have to keep calling it the monster because we don't know anything else about it. And the thing,
it's not a creature, it's not a demon, it's not a ghost. I don't think
it's a monster, because that's the best we got right now.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like, you feel like being in your head during the film. You're like, I was able to be like, well, I don't know anything about this, but I guess they'll just address it in the sequel, and that's kind of a bad thing. Like, you shouldn't have to be like, like, well, I guess I'll just figure it out in the sequel. That's not necessarily good filmmaking.
I mean, leave them wanting more, but don't leave stuff on the table.
Yeah, that's the thing. It left stuff on the table, and ultimately made the ending unsatisfactory, in part because of that. So the fact that we don't have particularly great, like, closure in the film is, now, I know that's a thing we like to do in horror films, but, there really isn't any closure in, like, the first Halloween or Friday the 13th movies, but those still feel better than this. And yeah, so I don't know. Like, now I was able to get a hold of the original short film that this is based off of, which is really just like a found footage version of what was going on in the film, and this is definitely better. I will say that this is the superior version of the product, quote unquote. And
so it's this the same writer director though, yeah?
Yeah, it's the same writer director. So he just kind of
cool.
So although it's not like, I don't know, it's not a remake in the sense that like other horror films are remakes. I mean, it's more just like, let's see if we can make something I've already made better. And that isn't as big of a sin in my like whole horror film world. Horror film people will understand what I mean when I say that. Everyone else is going to be like, what the hell is he talking about? But whatever. So for me, the movie is actually on like just a little bit higher than Tim's, in the sense that it's literally on the C plus B minus like cusp. It's like a 79.5 or something. If you were
Can we get a line judge in here?
I guess ultimately it would be more of a C plus. Basically, I felt like I enjoyed the movie. I believe I had a good time. It was I don't know if it was worth the price of admission, but I'm pretty sure it would suck on Blu-ray. Horror films are a lot better when they're big and you're in a dark, scary place. So I think in the cinema is the better place to see it. So, yeah.
If you're just dying to see a horror movie.
Yeah, this would be one to go see. However, if a sequel came out, I don't think I'd see it. I might read the plot summary on Wikipedia, but that's about it. So I guess ultimately it's a C+, even though I feel like it wasn't all like 100% deserving of that. So yeah, I guess that's it then. So.
All right, so that's our 3 movies for this time. We'll be doing another one soon.
Yeah.
So, hope to see you guys then.
Yep. See you next time.
Fresh popcorn.
Fresh popcorn. See ya.